The two enemies of human happiness are pain and boredom. Today it is bad, and day by day it will get worse, until at last the worst of all arrives. And yet, just as our body would burst asunder if the pressure of the atmosphere were removed from it, so would the arrogance of men expand, if not to the point of bursting, then to that of the most unbridled folly. Indeed, madness, if the pressure of want, toil, calamity and frustration were removed from their life. One can even say that we require at all times a certain quantity of care or sorrow or want, as a ship requires ballast, in order to keep on a straight course. Sometimes I speak to men and women just as a little girl speaks to her doll. She knows, of course, that the doll does not understand her, but she creates for herself the joy of communication through a pleasant and conscious self-deception. All striving comes from lack, from a dissatisfaction with one's condition, and is thus suffering as long as it is not satisfied, but no satisfaction is lasting. Instead, it is only the beginning of a new striving. We see striving everywhere, inhibited in many ways, struggling everywhere, and thus always suffering. There is no final goal of striving, and therefore no bounds or end to suffering. Any beautiful mind, full of ideas, would always express itself in the most natural, simple and straightforward way, anxious to communicate its thoughts to others, if this is at all possible, and thus relieve the solitude that he must experience in a world such as this. But conversely, intellectual poverty, confusion and wrong-headedness clothe themselves in the most labored expressions and obscure turns of phrase in order to conceal petty, trivial, bland or trite thoughts in difficult and pompous expressions. The ingenious person will above all strive for freedom from pain and annoyance, for tranquility and leisure, and consequently seek a quiet, modest life, as undisturbed as possible, and accordingly, after some acquaintance with so-called human beings, choose seclusion and, if in possession of a great mind, even solitude. For the more somebody has in himself, the less he needs from the outside and the less others can be to him. Therefore, intellectual distinction leads to unsociability.